¿Qué pues, mija? ¿Cómo le va la vida?
From Cafeteria Film Studios in Miami, Florida, Phresh presents Que Bola, where we talk to various movers and hustlers in South Florida who are popping off and succeeding, and in the process, how they're influencing the 305 culture. My name is Darwin Figueroa, and I am your host. I hope you enjoy this, and let's get into it, all right? Listo. Hey, what's up, everybody? In this episode, we sat down with Christian Portilla, the writer for the Miami Herald and the Miami New Times, as well as her own website, roamfreerights.com. It was an awesome talk with a very empowered woman who's established here in South Florida as a writer and doing other various things like hosting Meet the Mondays on Jolt Radio, amongst other things. I hope you guys really enjoy this talk. I really enjoyed this one. Let's get into it, all right? Listo.
All right, we're good.
Yeah? All right, good.
So we are in the studio with a very awesome up-and-coming writer from South Florida. Thank you for coming out to the
Wait,
show.
can I correct that?
Why?
Up and coming?
Yeah, I mean,
I've been here.
okay.
There's no up and coming.
All right.
I've been here.
You're established. You feel like you've
I'm
established. That's it. All right.
yeah.
So we're in the studio with an established female writer from South Florida.
Yes.
Christian, perdón.
Christian, yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's
the
okay.
first time I read your name, se me grabó en the Hey Cristina. And then
It's-
ever since then, I've been like fighting every single time that like I address you, it has to be Christian.
Yeah, Christian. And that's like my number one pet peeve.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just that like even people when they write me emails,
Yeah.
and I even write back and it's on my signature.
Yeah.
And they're so like, Cristina, I'm like,
No.
bro,
Christian.
la falta de respeto a esta gente.
So, you're in the studio. Thank you for coming on and talking to us. So, yeah, like, tell me all about you. You're a writer. How did you start writing?
So it's really crazy because I think writing found me, you know?
Okay.
I am a freelance journalist based here in Miami. I've born and raised here in Miami. I was born in Hialeah Hospital, to be exact. So I'm from Hialeah. And I just, was always like a very inquisitive person. I was always very curious. And this curiosity always came to me, like, even in my earliest memories. Now that in retrospect that I think about what I'm doing now, there was always signs, in my path. I remember, like, I always was a writer. I always kept a journal. I was always writing stories. I always won, like, awards and all these things for, literature or, whoever did like the best book reporter, just little things, And I even, when I was in 5th grade, wrote a poem. It was called like What Summer Means to Me was the prompt. And I remember I wrote such a descriptive poem that it got selected to be in a children's book of like a bunch of different poems.
Damn, so you've been like, you really established the...
We go back, okay? And so I remember that when it was time for me to declare a major, I'm a Gemini. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I have so many different artistic things that I like. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I was just like, Mom, like, I need to declare a major. Like, what do you think I should do? Like, what am I good at? And the first thing she said was, you should go into journalism.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, you should definitely go into journalism. You've always been a writer, reading and all, all of these things come so easy to you. Conversations, the questions, just think about it. And so I remember I was like, okay, and that was it. I selected the major and I kept it moving. But actively doing journalism is not like going to school to be an accountant, where you're like, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'll graduate, and I'll be an accountant. You know what I mean? It's how much work you put into it. You get out of this career whatever you invest,
So prior to you going to school for this, like higher education, in high school, what high school did you go to, by the way?
So I went to a couple of different high schools. I went to American. I went to Central.
Okay.
I went to this school. Actually, I ended up moving. I went to another school called Centennial, which was a little bit before Orlando, in like some small town. And that's
Okay.
where I ended up graduating from. And then I think there was one more high school, but I moved around so much, I don't even remember.
Damn, that's a lot of high schools.
A lot of high schools. So yeah.
All right.
that-
So when you were in your senior year, right?
Yeah.
Was journalism something that you had thought about and you were just like afraid of saying, I want to go for it because you didn't like somebody hadn't pushed you, or was it something that hadn't even crossed your mind that, oh, I'm so good at these other skills, I should invest it in this type of area?
It was when I left high school that I started to think about journalism because, you know, when I was in high school, I had to even stop sports because I had to get a job.
Okay.
And I had to help out. So a lot of the creativity that I was, you know, that I had inside of me kind of had to come to a pause because I needed to get a job. And yeah, I needed the money. And that has always been the case since I first started working. Hence why going to school took longer. Hence why even having this career, I always feel like I'm the late bloomer, you know, because I always had to have a job. And I had 2 or 3 jobs while I was going to school, while I was trying to write, while I was doing journalism. And I don't think that professors or teachers or even in high school can really understand the struggles of students that have to go to school and also go to work. And sometimes there's like this image that we think the college student, and you know, they just live in the dorms and they have, you know, the support of like that money, and I didn't have that experience, you know what I mean? So that was after. Journalism came after.
What college did you go to?
I went to Dade.
Okay.
College, I went to Dade. And in Dade, I took, you know, like the core classes. And then I needed to decide what I wanted to jump into, which is when I had that conversation with my mother. And I was like, Mommy, you know, what am I good at? Like, what do you see me doing? Because up until then, I didn't really have the ability to explore different side of myself, except now in retrospect, thinking about like journaling or writing. But when you're young, like that just seems, at least for me, like it was just like something normal that I did because I wanted to. Like it wasn't something that I thought I can make money from this, or I can have a career in this, or this is something that I can do. You know what I mean? Like my personality or carrying and commanding conversations with people about things, like that wasn't really an option for me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I completely understand where you're coming from. I started working when I was... I say I always was working. Like, when I say I started working when I was... If I really look back at it, I was working when I was a little jit because, like, my dad had his own little business, and he would pick me up and take me to go to work, like, every single day. Literally, after school, during summer, probably from, like, 4th grade, 5th grade on, when I could actually, like, do anything, he would go take me working with him. So that's when I started working. But I had a real official job when I was a jit.
Me too.
I was, like, 12 years old.
I was selling flowers at a flower stand when I was 13 years old.
Okay, so like...
And I love that. Like, I think that if anything that set me up to have like that work ethic and that hustle that later on in life, or not later on because obviously we're not that old, but now is what I fall back on. And I learned that from my mother because my mom, you know, she always gave me a really good example, and she was always like, work as hard as you can, you know? So it was great. I mean, yeah, other things had to kind of like pause and fall back, but like it comes back full circle, you know?
No, I agree with you. It's one of those things, all right. It's one of those things that it goes right next to what I was thinking about. You're a journalist and you're covering topics here in South Florida. And that's very much a South Florida story, you know, like being a first gener or a second gener, like really busting your ass, like since you were a kid, and like having to make it either. It's like this
either
thing,
you
right?
make it or you make it.
Either you make it or you make it.
That's it.
But the whole entire time, there's this like, there's this, I don't know how to explain it. Like, there's this pressure on you because like your parents are like busting their ass. You see, I don't even explain it to you.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations where you see your parents go through such really bad hardships and shield you from it because they're going through the hardship for you to not go through the hardship. So it's like this fucking pressure, like I gotta do something.
But
because,
you see it and you're like, well, I can't sit here and just quedarme con los brazos cruzados while my mom is, you know, working 2 or 3 jobs. No, girl, it's, you know, you gotta get on it. You have to get on it. And it was by choice, but also because I was always very aware. Like my mom raised me, you know, my mom is a single mom, and like I was my mom's partner. You know, I still am to a certain degree, but my mom was always very frank with me and was always very honest. And sometimes, you know, when we have these heart-to-heart, she's like, damn, I wonder if I did you wrong by kind of like, maybe you grew up a little too fast. Mm-hmm. And I always tell her, Mom, like everything you did was so perfect because I love the woman that I am, the heart that I have, los sentimientos que tengo hacia la gente. You gave that to me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So in journalism, is the same hustle, if not like 5 or 6 times harder. Why? Because, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but you don't go into journalism, at least I didn't, thinking, me voy a hacer una millonada, I'm gonna bank.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like give that narrative that I have to be a starving artist, because I disagree with that too. I should get paid for my craft and get paid well for my craft, because my craft evokes change, and I've seen it with my own eyes. So, but the model is changing. You know what I mean? And you also have to change with that. But I refuse, and I refuse to accept that I'm not making it, that I'm not going to make it, that I'm not going to have all of the things that should be coming to me. Like, no, bienvenido sea. Like, my arms are wide open, and, you know, I'm ready to receive everything that I put out, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I get 10 no's and I get 20 yeses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's how everything is, though. Because the thing is, like, all right, journalism is one of those type of fields where it's similar to sales. You know, it's not a field where it's like where you're a doctor or anything like that, because doctors don't have to worry about sales. Like, you don't really think doctor and sales, those things don't correlate. But journalism does correlate with sales, because journalism, for it to stay alive, needs some kind of advertising revenue from somewhere, you know? The journalist has to survive. The company that's publishing the things have to survive. So all that's fed by advertising revenue. So it does equate sales at a certain point.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you're creating something that is intrinsically something that you don't want to equate with money. You want it to be pure.
Yes, at least I do. Me, Christian.
I mean, everybody who really thinks of a journalist or any particular news feed or anything, they want to think that shit is like virgin, untouched. Like, this is real, and I could trust what this person's saying and what the voice is, et cetera, et cetera.
Of course.
You know, it's not tinged with any kind of influence or anything along those lines. But at the end of the day, journalism does have that, you know, that hustle aspect of it. So that's what, like, I understand what you're saying. People don't tell you that about it. Like, people don't tell you that about certain positions, that you're gonna have to learn how to hustle in it before you actually succeed in it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're a doctor, you went to school 8 years, you come out, you're making okay money. You're not struggling, son.
You're not getting paid a tank of gas to tell a story that's gonna get the person whose story you're telling thousands of dollars, perhaps.
Exactly.
That's kind of the life of a journalist sometimes. And like, we haven't talked about the type of journalism that I do, but for people listening, I like to put them under like these broad umbrellas, but I do community, culture, and lifestyle.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna touch on
that's
that.
kind of, because that's, I got it.
Yeah.
I jumped the gun. But those are kind of like the broad umbrellas. And I kind of fell into that, but I also, like, now I see that that's also like my beat and what I like to do. So as a freelancer, because up until this point, full disclosure, I've never been a staffer, or never say never, but I haven't been a staffer yet for an actual media company, right? All of my bylines are freelanced.
Yeah.
So going back to sales, I essentially have to sell this story to these editors and say, this is why it's worth it for you to tell this story, right? So as a freelancer, again, it's the hustle. You're an entrepreneur. You are your own business. So if I want to do 20 stories this week, I'm going to do 20 stories. But if I don't hustle those 20 stories, then I do 0, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. And so community, culture, and lifestyle, well, before that, freelancing, I'm like the yes person. Yes for pretty much 99.9% of the things that fall onto those categories. And of course are things that have to do with my beat. If you want me to write about, I don't know, something completely left field, unrelated, that has nothing to do with it, chances are I won't do it because the editor won't say yes. But me, Christian Portilla, I've written about things like from one thing completely unrelated to the other that I even surprised myself. And I'm like, girl, how the hell did you do that? Because
you push your boundaries.
Yeah, and it's outside of my comfort zone, but I'm like, I gotta get this money, this money, and I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, of course. Like that's the thing. That's the difference between doers and watchers. A lot of people just watch and like stay in their like perpetual idea of what they think they're gonna do, and then there's people who actually like do it and like fucking hustle with the change, because that's the biggest issue. Like you have this idea, right, of how things are gonna go, and then when you start doing it, it doesn't go that way. Like 99% of the time it don't go that way. So like
your project teaches you what it wants.
You're faced with the challenge, and you're gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna pussy away, like shy away, or
be a ball sack, because pussies are strong.
Exactly. Be a ball sack. Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna be fragile, if you're gonna be a ball sack,
if you're gonna be a little ball sack, then you might not get that far. But if si tú te enfrentas a las cosas, and you're just like, a big motto is like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
At that point, and a lot of my mentality for things is like, I'm doing it and I'll figure it out. I'm doing it and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then like community, culture, and lifestyle, these broad umbrellas that I was talking about, was because I was finding like something common. But the one thing that is like the common denominator on all my stories is the human element, or the human experience. Hence why I have my radio show Meet Them Mondays. And it's sharing stories of the human experience.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be even so inclusive that when I was coming up with the name, I said them, because maybe there's people that are non-conforming. So I was like, everyone's included.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I have topics like, I don't know, toxic masculinity. Yesterday, yesterday I had a show on leaving a strict religion.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, I had another show on biracial identity.
Yeah, I heard that one.
And they're pegged to real things that are happening in real life. And even when I write, it's still, I always want to get down to the human being that I have there in front of me. You know what I mean?
Obviously, your mom is one of your biggest influences.
Yes.
Right? Because like her frankness is probably something that you've carried into journalism. Who else is another big influence that you feel put you in a good path or in the right direction to follow?
Well, I credit a lot of like the journalist that I am today to one of my mentors. Her name is Delboni. And she's Brazilian, and she happened to be one of my instructors at FIU, one of my professors. And she ran a newsroom. And that newsroom, that classroom, prepared me more than those couple of semesters, because I took her after, a couple of years. Those semesters in those classes prepared me to be the journalist that I am today, and like far more than any other class, in college or in university that I could have ever taken, because she ran that classroom like a newsroom, and it was like a tight ship. And she broke me down, okay? Yeah. She broke me down that I would go home crying. I would have to walk out of her classroom because she would shred my stories apart. And I would feel so small. But she really humbled me, because she was kind of like, little girl, you think that you know so much about life and about all of these things, but like you're in my territory and I'm gonna teach you. And it was hard, but now she's one of the people that anytime I need anything, if I need advice, if I need, what do you think I should do about this story? What website or anything, I can call on her. So she was definitely an influence. And funny enough, the other day I was watching an interview on High Snobiety.
Oh, yeah.
And Muramasa was on, right? And they were interviewing him, and the interview was terrible. So terrible that I got anxiety, and I was like, I have to turn this off. I can't even continue to watch this. But anyway, they asked him, who influences you right now? And he was like, honestly, I don't listen to music that much.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That's sort of kind of like, I can sometimes relate to that, because there's times where I shut myself down and I'm like, I don't want to read other things because I don't want to get influenced in how I'm going to write this piece. But I reference a lot of websites, and I obviously, the Washington Post, the New York Times. I love reading even Refinery 29 or Girl Boss or Remezcla, or, I jump from website to website, and I obviously like to read what other people are reporting on and how they do it and their style, and everything magazines. Even just the other day, I got the Airbnb magazine to my house.
Oh yeah, I got that too.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a pretty good mag.
Oh my God. Like my heart was jumping out of my chest when I saw that.
Why?
Because I loved it, because the way that they were telling the stories, the just being able to travel and write about your travels. Are you kidding me? That's like that's a goal for me. That's like amazing. How it looked, how it was presented, it was fresh.
Yeah, it did look dope. And it was like super thick. Like nice pictures, nice. Yeah,
that magazine
nice
gets me all fuzzy and warm inside. I wrote to them that night, and I was like, "This is amazing. I want to get in on this.
Holla
at your girl." Basically, you know. So that's a little bit of everything that inspires me, you know.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So like, I see that. I feel you're a voice for this generation. You know, you're coming from this generation, and the way that you portray certain things are obviously not going to be the same as other people see them, who've had different experiences and have been exposed to different things in life. Being that you're a journalist, right? There's two questions here that I'm gonna pose to you, but it's like I'm gonna try to break it down all in simply in one. So like South Florida, this is my perspective, right? You could check me if you want. South Florida is like its own scene, period, in the United States. Like, it has its own weird politics. It has its own weird things that are just
social norms,
very sub-compartmentalized here in South Florida only. And then there's also like societal norms from, I would say, North America, like United States. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of like the gravy on top of the meat.
There's United States and there's Miami.
Yeah, there is. It's like the United States and there's Miami. Because, all right, if you travel, I mean, you find this shit out very easy.
Yes.
Like 5 minutes away from Miami, you realize, okay, there's really no other Miami.
I'm not in Miami anymore.
Yeah, you're not in Miami anymore, like anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Like, you could see another New York pretty much anywhere you want. You know what I'm saying? You don't see another Miami.
You don't.
You know? It's like other big cities are big cities. Like, I'm not, nothing against New York. New York is its own unique thing. But like big cities that are already,
not Miami. Yeah.
It's been already like paved over in a certain way. It's like, yeah, I've seen this already before. There's no South Florida like on the water, yet international, yet very local, yet very Latin, very Caribbean. It's like, this shit is weird as fuck, all right? So like the question, right, being, you cover all these topics. How do you feel about the negativity that's grows within journalism right now, subcompartmentalized here in South Florida? Because like right now, there's a lot of hate against journalists. You know, there is. I mean, I'm sorry to tell you. I mean,
oh really? That's news to me.
I mean, Trump is basically calling everything fake news, and everybody, like, journalism is literally under attack right now. You know? So it's like, it really doesn't like come to South Florida too much, because Latinos know how to like separate that bullshit propaganda. They're like, because they've seen it before in their countries. Like, I've seen this kind of propaganda before. It's very easy for me to fucking point this shit out. So it's like, fake news. Yeah, fake news my ass. Like, you know.
Our parents were, raised with all of this stuff. We call bullshit real quick.
Exactly. So you could call it bullshit. But at the same time, this in the national media, fake news is something that's like, it's really talked about, like fake news. How you being a journalist, how do you address that in like a local way here? Do you have to address it, or do you ignore it? How does that like play, you know?
Okay.
In the way that you write.
So, all right. The writing that I do isn't always, and very few times can get political, right? Political to the point where I'm writing like a ProPublica type of piece or something. Not like that. However, there are small politics or local politics that are things that I've had to write about. I'll give you an example. Atlas Meat Free Deli.
Okay.
Is like a little vegan plant butcher, if you will, right? They have a little food truck. And for 2 years, they've been trying to open their brick and mortar. Like, let me just set this up for you, right? They've been trying to open this brick and mortar, and they purchased a building because that's where they were going to open their restaurant, and they bought the building. But the city of Miami essentially had been dragging them along for 2 years, not giving them a permit. That story happens in South Florida, happens in Hialeah, happens in Little Haiti, happens all over South Florida. So much that it's almost like people become apathetic to what's happening, right? As a journalist, I remember I found out about it because I got an alert and there was Instagram posts, and I remember seeing it, and it was, a couple saying like, please reach out to Commissioner Keon Hardeman about, helping us get our permit, whatever. They weren't getting any replies. So my antennas went up and I was like, wait a second, what's going on? Especially because of the things that I cover are very community or people focused, or really like sharing the stories of like the independent people, like not these big corporations, and not because I wouldn't want to, but because it just happens to be what I'm attracted to, or what finds me, right? Yeah. So I'll make the long story short. I messaged them and I'm like, I'm seeing these posts, what's going on? I'm a journalist, let me know. And I'm on the phone for about, I don't know, what seemed like it was probably like over an hour, speaking with Atlas, with the owners, basically telling me how they're about to go bankrupt because they're paying the mortgage on a building, renting an industrial kitchen in Hialeah to cook all of the food, because they also are vendors, so they supply local restaurants with like vegan cheeses and vegan meats, and also running their food truck. And I wrote that story for the New Times. Yeah. Long story short, they got their permit and they're about to start their restaurant. Yeah. How does that tie into like the fake news and all of these things? Which, by the way, if I was a staffer here with any company, or any company that wants to hire me to write this story, humble brag or whatever, I would have done an investigative piece, or I'm open to doing an investigative piece. I'm open to writing a story on what is going on with the city of Miami and these permits. We are the only, and I don't want to speak out of context, but I haven't heard of another city that has expediters that are like these third-party companies that you pay to go and basically, in layman's terms, solucionarte your permit situation and expedite it for you because of how messed up the process is.
Yeah, it's backwards.
So in terms of like fake news and politics and things like that, my experience has been more on local things and kind of like shedding light on certain things like these. One of my most read stories of the New Times was calling out the Smuckers company who owns Café Bustelo for essentially, because, libel and stuff. I don't want to be held liable here. But borrowing, or whatever you want to call it, using Jenny Lee's idea for 305 Cafecito. I wrote that story. Yeah. And everybody in Miami and South Florida wrote that story after I wrote that story. Yeah. And it was just me, scrolling along, just, doing my regular rounds, and someone ranting on Facebook about something like this happening. And so that's the way. And it's not fake news, because these things are happening in our city. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. But the thing is that there's a lot of like, not necessarily fake news. It's just that people don't want to be that inclusive, and they don't want to like, you cast like a community like, oh, we're all kumbaya community. But there's a lot of people who don't want to do the whole kumbaya community.
And they don't.
Yeah, and they don't. And I'm saying like, within you covering stories, when you have you confronted any hate? Has anybody like reached out to you and be like, yo, why you write this? Like,
I get feedback on my stories, of course.
No, but I mean like negative, like.
Yes.
Like, how do you?
Okay, but here's the thing. Nobody wants to be kumbaya until les toca a ellos that day, and then they need to call on a journalist to call attention to a situation that you're dealing with, and that you need, someone to write about it or to speak on it, or, sometimes people, I think, like, they can be malagradecidos, like, ungrateful. Yeah, I know. Because and this is everyone. You don't want to read the paper. You don't want to buy. You don't want to get a digital subscription. You don't want to click on this person's website. You don't want to sponsor cualquier cosa, but you'll buy a Kylie lip kit, or you'll buy the fitted from this company, or you'll go to Round 2 that just opened and dropped 600 on some sneakers, but you won't help out your local journalist, or you won't, recommend the mixtape of fulano. So I'm not trying to cast like we're a kumbaya, because we're not a kumbaya. Yeah. You know what I mean? But But you better kind of jump on this you better be kumbaya, because el día mañana something's gonna happen where you're gonna need this service, and you are not gonna want to be that person in your community where you don't show up for people, or you don't, try to at least, make your rounds or support or do all these things. Have I gotten negative feedback for some of my stories? Yeah. I do a lot of stories in the neighborhood of Little Haiti, which is a neighborhood that I lived in. And I recently moved out.
I used to stay there too.
Huh? Yeah.
I used to stay there on 56.
Okay. So people used to get mad at me all the time. Oh, you don't know your history. Call it Lemon City. Don't call it Little Haiti. Don't do this. Don't do that. The lines are blurred, and you don't know your county line. And I'll give you that one for an example. And there's times where I respond. Yeah. And there's other times where I'll be like, do you even come to Little Haiti?
Yeah. Were
you at the county meeting or at the city meeting where people were lined up with signs saying, we're calling this Little Haiti?
Yeah.
This is not Lemon City. And the actual Haitians. Yeah. People that live there were saying, we are calling this Little Haiti, but you don't spend time there, and you don't go to the bodega to buy food there, and you don't get the $5 special I got used. Yeah. So don't come and talk to me about these things. Yeah. And I can't be everywhere at once. But one feedback that I get, and I've been very lucky and blessed, because I feel like people recognize that my heart is in the right place when I'm doing my work. My stories are not, I don't cover people, and I don't look at people and think, I'm going to cover this person because I'm going to get something out of it, or I'm going to get followers out of it, or they're going to shout me out, or they're going to do whatever. I'm not checking for that stuff. And if you look at my work, maybe you might not even be interested in it, because these individuals don't look like people that you would hang out with, or people that you would talk to, or people that, you associate with, right? But these people are important. And these stories need to be told. And I'll tell that story even if I won the lottery tomorrow. I would still be a journalist. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Like, you touched on something that's nuts to me. I agree with you 100%. Like, everybody always tells me, like, with my show, they always give me suggestions. Like, you should do this, you should do that, this and that. I'm like, yo, I feel you. But at the same time, like, I'm doing a show that I like. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like this shit. Like, it's my show, and I'm bringing on people who I think is, like, interesting to me. Yeah. Because, like, fuck what you think. If you want to watch what you think, like, then go create that, go make that show yourself, homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing this me, and I'm doing me. Like, I'm bringing on people who I feel that's interesting and have a certain spice of Miami. You hit two things. South Florida has a very fucking, like, you were living in Little Haiti. You not Haitian. No. Like, there's a lot of, like, this, like, various blurs in the culture, right? Do you feel that there's any way that we could all, like, really come together and unite, being that South Florida is, like, the epicenter of, like, Latin and, like, Caribbean culture? Like, we could set aside all the stupid little differences that we have in each other. Like, there is... Cause
you want to talk about me being kumbaya, but that quite...
I mean, do you think it's capable? Because the only reason I bring it up is because of this, right?
Look.
We are going to be the largest minority of people, basically the majority by, like, 2040. Okay. Hispanics, right?
Okay.
And Latins.
Latinos, yeah.
So... we're not represented like that in Congress. We're not represented like that in the powers.
We're not represented like that in newsrooms.
In the newsrooms, in the writing rooms where they make the shows. Why do you think they always cast like if you go back and watch Seinfeld, that shit is mad racist, son. Like, that shit is like, you watch that show and you're like, damn, I can't believe people used to do this shit mad funny. Like, because the writers were like white Jewish kids and they all thought that this dumb shit was funny.
Or when you see like the captions or someone and they're like trying to include Latinidad and they'll be like, yeah, because I was on my way to mi casa. Or like, and you're like, we would never use a word like that. We would never say these things.
Like, everybody, like, Latins are always casted in this like comedic way. Like, Sofia Vergara has to have this funny ass accent to be on national television. Like, no, dude, I speak English and I don't speak like that, and I'm fucking from Colombia, homie. What's up? Like, you
I'm
hear
Colombian too.
You see, like, we speak in English. Do we sound like Sofia Vergara with the chachi talk and shit? Like, I hate that shit.
No, but I do. That's you were talking about criticisms. I get that a lot. Like, that I have to neutralize my accent. That my accent is super heavy, and my talk show too. But I think if anything, I love that about me. You know what I'm saying? I love my voice. Anywhere I go, people know this girl's from Miami. And not only that, but they're already like, oh, where are you from?
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be like, you know, that question. No, but like, what's your, you know, your background? Like,
Yeah.
what you, and they
brought that
tiptoe
up in
around
that biracial piece that you said, right? Like, it's crazy that people are like, where you really from?
Yeah, where you really from? I don't mind I don't mind those questions though, because I'm really, and where am I really from? I mean, I'm really from Hialeah, but if you want to know where my mom's from, she's from Medellin.
So,
you know?
okay, so we all have these things that we are, this in common. People from South Florida have this in common.
But
do you
I don't
think
get
that we
offended.
could use that to like unite? Or do you,
Okay.
I mean, is it always going to be like, siempre the Cubans are going to, like, Colombians are going to hate Cubans for this shit, and Cubans are going to hate Nicas for that, and Nicas are going to hate Venezuelans for this, and Venezuelans are going to hate Puerto Ricans for that. It's like, yo, shut the fuck up. We all Latins. Like, let's unite and do some, like, we have the opportunity to change the narrative in Miami.
We do,
Me
but
and you.
here's the thing. Me and you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and this is what I find problematic. And my wife and I talk about this a lot, because
Okay.
she'll tell me, she'll say, baby, people in New York are not like the people in Miami. You want to talk about community and you want to do this? Let's go to New York. And we've traveled the United States extensively. So
Yeah.
you were saying earlier that you noticed that you're not in Miami right away. But to me, yes, I noticed that. But again, there's no place like home, right? However, you go to New York or you go to New Jersey or Jersey City, and I'm just using that as a reference.
Yeah.
But the Latinidad and the culture and the way that everything is meshed there is like what I think, or I thought that I grew up in here in Miami, right? So in New York, and from what I've seen and I've experienced, and just like anywhere up north, Latinos and what we say negros or African Americans, black people, I feel like they see each other, and I feel like this way too in my personal points of view. We happen to fall in the same, granted, we each have our own issues, but we're still one people. That's one thing. And then of course, like Anglo people are different from us, you know, and that's a whole other topic, but at least in that perspective is to me the same. We're one and the same. We get to South Florida and everything is cliquey AF.
Yeah.
Like everything is cliquey as fuck. Like, and this not only happens in our generation. I think that, and I think our generation and you and me as people have the ability to change this, because now our generation, we look at people like us and we don't have like, we're not racist. We don't have like these prejudices around people, or we expect to think Jews are this way or Colombians and coke. Like we are already like taking all these stereotypes away, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't, that's not us.
Yeah.
So in that way, yes, we cannot unite. But here's the problem, again, of our generation, that our parents and their parents, they had their own set of issues. But now let's talk about us, and a lot having to do with social media. In South Florida, and I find this all the time on my Instagram, for example, let's just say one girl is doing parties on reggaeton and Latino culture, and they're happening at whatever venue. Then another girl on my feed is doing parties for, you know, girls that like listening reggaeton, and a ladies' night for reggaeton, and, you know, is doing it at another venue. The same night, you know, let's say on a Thursday or a Tuesday, whatever you want to call it, you know, different venues. And I always ask myself, these two people are doing similar shit. Like, why aren't they kind of like joining as opposed to creating events that are separate? I think too, as creators and as people who are like in charge of like directing these vibes for our city, we can also be more conscious and responsible with our energy of creating inclusive spaces, and maybe this happens behind closed doors, but I'll attend those events and I won't see La Fulana from this party showing up to the other girl's party, and I'm using parties as a reference, but we can be very cliquey. So here's the other thing that's very cliquey too.
Damn.
I feel like
even creatively we're cliquey. That's fucked
even
up.
Even creatively, because, and then racially we can be very like cliquey as well, because I've had people and I've seen people and I've gotten like this pushback that you were asking about earlier. You cover a lot of black communities, but you're Latina. Why aren't you covering Latinos? Why aren't you speaking about your people? We have our people to speak for us. Why are you doing that? So then I started thinking, coño, I have to start talking more to my Latinos too, because I recognize that maybe I'm not doing as much coverage for Latinos, right? So then I do that, but then I'm like, I end up gravitating toward covering black communities, because yes, I was living in Little Haiti, and the people of Little Haiti, I love Little Haiti so much because anywhere I go, it's the Haitian cultura, it's the people, I always get a smile, I always get a hello, I always get a good morning, a good afternoon, a smile.
Yeah, they're very happy people, Haitians.
Amazing. And that reminds me too, but then you get this pushback of you're covering these other, you're not covering your community. Why are you overstepping?
But that's the saying, like, why is Little Haiti not my community?
That's what I'm saying.
Little Haiti is my community. I was born and raised in Miami. Little Haiti is part of Miami. That's my community.
And that's my community now, and I care about my community, and I write about my community, and I write about who's new here, what's happening. One story of mine, I was working out of a co-working space in Little Haiti, and I'm walking around on the first floor, talk about divine timing, and I hear someone say something about that the Big Night in Little Haiti program was getting defunded. Again, my journalism knows, my antennas, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because I had gone to these events, and if you haven't been, it's basically a night where like the majority of the Haitian community gets together at the cultural complex, and they have compa, and they have music, and you're sweating and you're dancing, una pachanga, you know, a lo haitiano, and it's beautiful and it's amazing. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I kind of like take a few steps back, and I'm like, wait, did I hear this right? Like, this program is about to be defunded? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, it's, you know, they don't have anyone to sponsor it anymore, blah blah blah, like whatever. And I'm like, so I get on the computer, who, you know, what's going on, who do I need to contact? I call the venue that, you know, the Rhythm Foundation at the time. I get on the phone and I'm like, hi, my name is Christian, you know, I'm a journalist, I'm writing the story for the Miami Herald. What would I overheard this, I'm at a co-working space, can you tell me more? Like, whoever just picked up the phone. And the lady was like, now you want to call? Oh, now the Miami Herald wants to call me and find out about this program that's being defunded when I have no other option? And I was like, listen, I'm a free agent. Like, if you just, you know, I'm a free agent. If you just give me 30 minutes of your time, I'll make it worthwhile. Yeah. She's like, show up to my office in 30 minutes and I'll give you an interview. Mm-hmm. I drive down there. I bucket to the Rhythm Foundation, have the conversation with her, write the story, goes out in the Miami Herald. People lose their shit over the story. What do you mean, Big Night in Little Haiti, blah, 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 blah. They're going crazy. I'm seeing it all over social media. I'm seeing it all over the place. And a sponsor comes through and the program gets saved.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
So, I mean, to answer your question, can I think that we can all come together? I think we have the potential to, but in terms of our generation, I think that our generation, sadly, sometimes so, and I also feel this way too, like everybody wants to be popping now. Everybody wants to be someone and be popular and have likes and this. Nobody just wants to be an accountant. Nobody wants to be a shoemaker. And you know what? That's okay too. But I think that because of that clickiness and because of that, I find people can be very selfish and they won't throw you a bone because they're like, well, if her event gets more packed than mine, then God forbid, you know, I see una hermana latina mía or una hermana negra mía or the white girl doing better than me. And we got to check our own egos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you.
And that reason right there, because of selfishness, is why I think that maybe sometimes as a creative community, we sort of hold each other back.
That sucks, yo. That's sad to hear. I mean, we have so much to show and so much to give. It would be dope if everybody could just put their egos aside and really allow us to lay a foundation of really awesome creativeness and like an awesome culture and an awesome scene that I know that South Florida really could have, because a lot of people here are extremely creative and they really want to put it out there, like, just,
and we
like,
have it, and we do it. Like, it's not to like throw like a sad like pity party, but I also think
no, but it's true what you're saying.
We could throw each other the bone a little bit more.
Yeah,
you know
like,
what I'm saying? And I know that I take I'm accountable for that too, and I know that I could also throw the bone as much as I possibly can as well to other creatives and to other people. However, I don't know if it's a Miami thing or what it is, but sometimes too people come at you with the wrong intentions.
That's what I was gonna say. Like,
please get into that. Please.
If you're gonna throw somebody the bone, right? You're gonna expect that other person to fulfill whatever said thing that they're gonna do. It's not like you're just gonna put yourself all out there and expect, you know, nothing in return. And then the person who's doing it isn't necessarily doing it with the best intentions. They're just basically doing it to use you.
And because they have more of a following, or because they have more people, or because they have more money, or because they have connections, or because they have whatever.
Yeah.
And that's again checking the ego, because I've seen that myself where it's like I see certain things and I'm just like, but this person doesn't even care about this. Like how? But then I'm like, but you know what? Fuck it. If even if it's getting some sort of shine or something, whatever. But at least the story is being told, and you just leave it to charge it to the game type of thing.
Right now, like you were talking about Lil Haiti, I did a piece on Abraham Metellus from the Lil Haiti Cultural Complex.
Yes.
And he was just talking to me about like everything that they doing. And then after interview, I'm just like, man, I want to get these people from Grown who are doing this complex show. And he's like, oh man, that's my dog Edson. He just like shot me the number.
And it was also there.
And he was just like, he hit me up like that. And that's how like one thing led to the other, where it wasn't pre-planned. It was just like, yo, Abraham, do you know this? Like this, I was just talking to him and he's just like, he connected me like that. Like in one text message, I was like,
but also because he's also, he's amazing. Yeah. And two, because he's also very interested in sharing and giving the people of his culture as well the spotlight. You know what I'm saying? Edson is Haitian. Abe is Haitian. Yeah. And I'm not saying that there's an agenda behind that, but because Abe is the first one to tell me, like, and he knows how much I love Little Haiti. But what I'm saying is that he wants to see his people.
Yeah, he wants to preserve
our people, our Miami creative community. I'm not speaking culturally. I'm speaking our creative Miami community grow. Because I know them too, and they're fantastic, both of them. You know, Edson and
really
Josh.
Good people.
Yeah, and I think too, whenever you want to do something like that, it's a simple matter of sliding in someone's DM or even making a call. Does anyone know this person that knows this person? Because that is one thing that I feel our community is receptive about. Like, hey, whenever I do like things for my show, hey, I'll always hashtag like for journalism, right? And then I'll write a post. Does anyone know someone that does this or does that? And, I would love to, have them on my show. And people comment and people say, I know such and such, or I know this and that. And yeah, they know, and they'll give me the time of day because they know I'm invested in my community and they show me love. And one thing that I do love about Miami is that sometimes I feel as well like I can underestimate like the power of the community that I'm always so like, always trying to tell people about. But I even remember when I had my Meet That Mondays 1 year anniversary. This is Miami. There's always something to do. Yeah. People here will be like, yeah, I'm gonna show up to your thing, but they're low key like thinking about all the 3 other things that they might do, and they might show up to your event like for the last 30 minutes. It is what it is. If they show up, because that's our culture. We always got like 3 backup plans. I had 3 drinks
in this last place, so I'm not going over. I'm faded.
But people came through to the Meet That Mondays 1 year anniversary, like throughout the night, just showing me love and showing me love, and I'm like, wow.
That's what's up.
Thank you, community, because you really feed my spirit when you do these things, And like as a journalist, you're always taught, or at least in J school, I learned you never insert yourself in the story. Everybody read all of these stories that I'm talking about. Everybody saw them, but do they really see the person behind? People are always quick to say, thank you to the Miami Herald for coming and telling my story. Thank you for the New Times, for coming and tell my story. And I think that they could have a little bit more etiquette. Thank you. And not even thank you. You don't have to say thank you because it is what it is. But
realize that there's a creative behind that.
There's a person behind this. I took time out of my day or out of my whatever to get this story out there. I could have been doing Netflix and chilling with my wife. I could have been with my dogs. I could have been working on another story. I could have been doing anything in the world. But I take care of doing these things and I want to do them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you love the community, you love South Florida, and you wanted to be portrayed in the most beautiful light possible.
Absolutely.
So before we ride, I have a last 2 questions. First of all, what's your favorite Miami food? Something that you can only get here in Miami?
My favorite Miami food. Does it have to be like a Miami food?
Yeah, it has to be something that's a Miami food. Like something that like you
fine.
That you only get here good.
That I only get here good?
Or only get here, period.
So, I'm a big lover of pastelitos.
Okay.
But I love pastelitos de queso. Like, the ones that are, instead of guayaba y queso, that they're sort of like, the long.
The long ones with mashed sugar on the top.
Yes. Y tienen que ser de queso. I love those. Yeah, those are good.
That's good.
Can I say my drink? Cause
All right, what's your drink?
Well, I love coladas.
Colas?
I love
everybody
coladas.
love a colada.
Un cortadito
Yeah.
or un batido.
And what's your favorite to date? What's your favorite Miami experience or craziest Miami experience?
My craziest Miami
or
experience.
best that
Or
you-
one of my
yeah.
best. Damn. Okay. I don't know. I'm going to just say the first one that came
All
to
right.
my mind. And I'm going to kick myself in the ass later, but whatever. Okay. So I'm just going to say two.
Okay.
I loved back in the day when Wynwood actually used to not be like Wynwood and it was
Yeah.
scary. And I would actually fear
Scary.
walking to my car because I would be like, please don't let me get raped. Please don't let these things happen to me. God, I just wanted to have a good night. So
Yeah.
Vagabond and the memories of Vagabond, White Room, I don't know, just like going, like even the Florida Room, the Pickle back in the day, seeing DJ Harvey one night was one of the best nights of my life. Freaking Grand Central.
Oh, man.
Man, those Miami
Grand
nights were
Central.
amazing. I cried. I literally shed tears when Grand Central got closed.
Yeah.
But one of the other craziest nights in Miami, and I'm like, Mami, si escuchas esto, please forgive me. But I remember they did this program called Sleepless Nights Miami
Okay,
or
in
something.
Miami Beach.
Yes, do you
Yeah,
remember that?
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for those people that aren't familiar, long story short, there was like, let's say a map, and each place, each like spot on the map had a bus that would pick you up and take you from one place to the next place to the next place like that throughout the night. And
Yeah.
it was called Sleepless, you
Yeah.
know, because you were basically
Yeah,
up the whole
up
night.
all night.
And it was free, okay? And so I was like in my, I want to say like, I don't know how old were we when this was going on, like maybe
Probably
like,
like 4 or 5 years ago.
no, I think more.
Yeah, it might be
no,
more.
way more. I must have been like, I probably wasn't even 21
I
yet,
think
like
it's 4 or 5,
19
but it's probably
18.
like 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And so whatever, I remember that, you know, gather up the troops, gather my friends, and my friend, you know, my best friend was like, yo, we're gonna go to this thing, you know, let's get, you know, turn, let's have a
Yeah.
good time. So we got so high,
Yeah.
but like so
Big,
high
yeah.
that I remember I looked at my friend and I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so high right now, I can't do this. Anyway, so we, you know, we smoke, we have a great time, and we start getting on the buses. And it was one of the best nights
Yeah.
in my life here in Miami, because I remember we were just so like free,
Yeah.
you know, and not only because we were high, but because I was with my friends, we were dancing, the people we were meeting were in like such good vibes. Then we jumped on the bus for free and went to the next place and like that. And the whole night, I remember just thinking, I had one of those moments where I was like, God, like, thank you so much
Yeah.
for letting me be here and doing this with my friends
Yeah.
and seeing my city the way that, you know. I'm
Yeah, you
seeing
get
my
into
city.
that mix when you start meeting different people and you're meeting them with a happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
gotten that's a really, really good feeling when you're like super happy. Either you're drunk or high or whatever, you know what I'm saying? You're like happy as fuck, and everybody else is in the same
the same tip,
state.
and they don't
You
even
know?
have to be in anything, but they just feel
They feel the happiness,
your
yeah.
excitement for life and your
Yeah.
youth and your
And they approach you in the same way.
in the same way.
Yeah.
And that night, man, that sleepless nights, they need to bring that back. Whoever did that
Yeah.
one time was amazing.
That's dope. That's
Yeah.
dope. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show and talking to us about your life, talking to us about your experiences, what you're popping off with your freelance journalism.
Thank you.
Are you open for like collabs or anything with anybody else?
Absolutely. You
So-
trying to come on Meet the Mondays?
No, I'm just saying if anybody want to reach out to you and like they have any ideas for you and
Yes.
and anything, where can they reach out to you?
Okay, so I'm very open to pitches and story ideas. Granted, I might not be able to write them all or cover them all, but I'm always open to listening. So I always tell people to send me pitches and just even an email. Hey, can you write about this or have this project? Something simple. My email address is info at Rome, ROAM, free, FREE, rights, WRITES.com.
Okay, so
Info at romefreerights.com.
info at romefreerights.com.
Yes.
And your IG?
At Rome Free Rights.
Same thing. At
Same
Rome Free.
thing.
All right.
The website is www.roamfreerights.com. The talk show is at Meet Them Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is on my website. But I'm all over social media,
Mm-hmm.
and I will respond. I may be delayed, but I'll get back to you. For sure. And even like I said, a slide like you slid in my DMs, and we're here now.
Yeah.
I can be reached. Like I'm available. I'm open. I'm available. I'm here. This is my city. I'm planted here. I want to represent for my city. 305 till I die.
That's what's up. I'm with you 100%, man.
So
I appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Like straight up, like everything that I do is genuine. I hit you up on DM. You say, yeah, like everybody who comes onto my show, I just hit them up like, yo, look, I think you popping. I like what you're doing. Like, do you want to just come on and let's talk about it?
I appreciate that so much,
like,
because I don't really get to be on this side of being interviewed ever. I'm always on the other side, so it's kind of cool to have like these experiences where I'm like kind of getting a taste of my own medicine.
It makes you a better journalist too, because you feel like, oh my God, like this is what my subject feels like when I go and I sit in front of them.
Exactly. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you welcoming me into your space, and I'm sincere. Like I mean it. If you need anything, or if I can connect you with anyone, or do anything in my power to also help you and see you grow, I would be more than happy.
For sure, man. I appreciate that. We'll jump onto the Meet Them Mondays and we'll talk shit about some kind of topic. I'm sure we'll come up with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for coming on. Hasta la próxima. If you guys like what we saying, if you like the topics that we're talking about, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Let them know what's going on. The Que Bola Podcast is yours truly, Darren Figueroa, rapping from Miami. Peace.
Well, there you have it. It was a wonderful talk. I really want to thank Christian for coming on to the podcast, coming out to the show and chopping her up with us. You already heard where you could get in contact with her if you have any thoughts for her, any kind of like cool ass ideas. You could also check her out, like I said, on Mondays on her show, Meet Them Mondays, Jolt Radio. Holla at Jolt Radio. And yeah, thank you so much for that. If you guys like what I'm doing, you guys like the Que Bola Podcast, we have other things right now. Que está sazonando for the city is gonna be popping. I know y'all gonna like it, alright? So thank you so much. Share this and subscribe. Share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, share it with whoever the fuck you want to share it with, but just share it, alright? It's D-Fig, Que Bola Podcast, Phresh Media. Peace.